Alien vs. Predator is one of the longest running crossover series. From comics to movies, they've pretty much done it all. And while not the first AVP game, AVP 2000 is considered to be what turned the franchise into a video game staple. But considering I was like 2 when it came out, I never got a chance to play it. And that's a damn shame. So now, after 25 years, it's time to see just how well it holds up. Now, if you're not familiar with AVP games, they usually provide a 3-campaign experience, letting you play as the aliens, the predators, and the humans. And while there might be some overlap with game mechanics, each one has its own distinct gameplay style and aesthetics, making for a unique experience unlike anything at the time. So let's dive right into the campaigns. The Marine. The Marine path starts you off in Hadley's Hope, 10 years after the events of the movie, when a sudden containment breach leaves the colony infested once again. Equipped with a pulse rifle and some flares, we take the role of a nameless Marine, tasked with getting the hell out of Dodge. I was expecting a constant barrage of aliens right out of the gate, but instead, what we get is some of the best build-up in early 2000s horror game history. The blaring alarms, the pitch dark corridors, the loud beeping from your motion tracker all keep you in a constant state of panic and anticipation. They even throw a few red herrings our way by making us go through a sterile egg lab and the derelict ship without anything actually happening. It's not until around 5 minutes of horror-induced stress that we get our first Xeno encounter. It's quick and horrifying, and it perfectly pays off the slow start. Definitely a memorable mission if I've ever seen one. But after a few scares and some more close encounters of the fourth kind, we managed to make it out of the facility and into Hadley's Hope, where an APC should be waiting to pick us up. Except there's a giant locked gate keeping us from reaching our ride. So with nothing left to lose, we dive deeper into the colony, where we're tasked with restoring power. This means venturing back into the pitch dark underground tunnels. Now, there's something about going from a wide open sky to dark and cramped interiors that exacerbates the horror of it all, because every time you step into a dark building, you're immediately filled with a genuine sense of dread and anticipation, maybe even regret. It's like going back into a house where you know the killer is. And since this is the only mission with an outside area, it makes for a pretty unique horror element that really stood out to me. But to combat the darkness, we do have our very own low light optic, which, while a little grainy and oversaturated, is something straight out of Aliens, making it feel like you're watching found footage. It's pretty useful in pitch black environments, but when it comes to setting up the mood, the flares are where it's at. Arsenal-wise, things really open up as we get access to the smart gun, a flamethrower, and some dual pistols. The smart gun is as overpowered as you expect, shredding most aliens in about 0.5 seconds. The pistols are good if you manage to land your shots. And the flamethrower, well, the flamethrower belongs in the garbage. You never get enough ammo, so the little love taps you resort to are never enough to take down an alien. If anything, you're just as likely to take yourself out with the residual fire as you are a Xeno. Despite the selection, our trusty pulse rifle never goes out of fashion. Equipped with a grenade launcher and a high rate of fire, this thing obliterates aliens with extreme prejudice. But despite the labyrinth-like power station, we managed to restore power to the door and make a mad dash to the APC. But instead of nuking things planetside, we get some orders from above.
Orders from above. You must shut down the cooling systems before they'll authorize an airlift.
The Weyland-Yutani atmosphere processor has gone critical, and we need to make sure it really blows. So we get thrown back into the abyss, where we're tasked with shutting off 5 ventilation fans throughout the facility. It's honestly a daunting task that can really test your mettle and eat up your time. I was constantly worried I had missed the vent, so I did a lot of backtracking. Though the game was nice enough to tell you when you were near one, so that actually helped out a bunch. That, and I'm pretty sure I glitched past the fan and onto the last levers, so I got pretty lucky there. But with the ventilation shut off, this starts an imminent meltdown that has us 360 our way out, making for another exhilarating escape. finally make it off planet and onto an orbital station, only to be bombarded and boarded by a Predator ship. Also, there's aliens. Not sure how they got out, but the sneaky bastards did it. And in a last-ditch effort to control the outbreak, the top brass unleashes their ultimate weapon, a Xeno-cyborg hybrid with psychopathic tendencies. Equipped with dual machine guns and an automatic laser targeting system, he's honestly more of a threat than the Xenos themselves. Thankfully, we stumble onto some heavy machinery, a self-guided missile launcher, and a straight-up rocket launcher, which not only helps with the cyborg, he did take a lot of hits though, but it also solves our little Predator problem. The Predators, while scary, aren't that threatening, as long as you keep moving. They are pretty resilient, but not enough to tank a rocket to the face. But with the whole station overrun, we decide to jump ship, where we manage to board the Tylargo in hopes of getting an evac there. Unfortunately, we arrive a little too late, as the whole ship has not only been evacuated, but it's also overrun.
Here's the latest. Tarago is overrun with bugs, and it's gonna be tough going. So watch your back.
Yeah, we just can't catch a break. We try to make our way to the hangar in a last-ditch effort to survive, but our hopes are immediately crushed when we get one last transmission, letting us know there won't be any more evacs, effectively leaving us for dead.
Thank you for your services, Private. You've been most useful. However, I have to inform you that the company is unable to evacuate you at this time.
So we're forced into a final standoff, going up against aliens, predators, and predaliens. But considering we're battle hardened and we have a minigun, things go pretty well. That said, we still need to ride out, so we stick to the plan and make our way to the hangar, where instead of a ship, we're met with an alien queen. I'll be honest, she gave me a lot of trouble, not only because she kept throwing random shit at us, but because you can't kill her outright, at least not with any weapon. So, you're meant to send her down the airlock, similar to the scene in Aliens, but the biggest gimmick here is figuring out how to make it work, because you're not actually meant to lead her into the airlock since it'll glitch, at least it did for me, but instead, you just let that shit rip and watch her get sucked out. Despite the queen being gone, there's still no evac in sight, so we're left waiting as things fade to black. Talk about a downer ending. With that said, the Marine Path is probably my favorite campaign in the game. Most of the story is told through transmissions from command, which are these cheesy live action recordings, probably done in-house. But it's honestly more charming than anything, so I was having a good time. The Marine Path is also the most atmospheric, with the dimly lit environments, narrow corridors, and the great sound design adding to the suspense of it all. This is as close to survival horror as you can get with Aliens vs Predator. Finishing the campaign also unlocks quite a few extra missions. They're all self-contained as far as stories go, each one taking you to a different place of interest, like an ancient alien temple or an Nostromo's lookalike. And considering you finished the game, combat is amped up to 11, making them some of the hardest missions in the game. They even introduce a jetpack for most of these, which adds a fun sense of verticality missing from the main campaign. Overall, it was a good time. The Predator. The Predator campaign starts you off outside Area 52, a secret military base where one of our brothers is being held. We take the role of a lone Predator tasked with retrieving our brother along with a stolen Predator ship. And immediately things get pretty silly as we massacre everyone there. The Predator has a pretty wide arsenal. We start off with the wrist blade, spear gun, and plasma caster, which is already more than enough to do some serious damage, making most human encounters nothing more than a good time. It's only when we find the ship that we unlock our full potential. The Smart Disc is your standard issue slicer, which you can recall for a little bit of energy. But the handgun is totally new to me. Granted, it's more of a taser. But despite its weak curve, it one-shots most things in the game, with the Praetorians being the most susceptible to its shocking influence. But despite our impressive weaponry, we're unable to find our brother, so we dive deeper into the base, leading us to the Xenobiological Holding Facility, where a recent Xeno outbreak complicates our search. Despite our technological and racial superiority, the aliens are still pretty scary. Not only are they fast as fuck, but they really pack a punch. Especially when they gangbang you from every direction, they're relentless. They even keep going at you despite being dismembered. It's honestly pretty rad. That said, it's nothing our old reliable wrist blades can't handle, because when you run out of energy, that's pretty much all you'll have. And while a bit clunky, you get used to the floating movement, which combined with the wrist blades makes for some really fun close quarter combat. But I digress, because we make it inside the base where we manage to find traces of our brother. But things aren't looking good, as we get the sense that the humans might have been unethically experimenting on our bro. And sure enough, our suspicions are quickly confirmed when we stumble onto an alien-predator hybrid. A pred-alien, if you will. And seeing as we're kinda racist, we immediately get rid of that abomination with extreme prejudice. I should mention that while I really love the low poly characters, the pred-alien design is the ugliest looking face that just doesn't do it for me. And for their crimes against predator kind, well, we set the whole base to blow. But after blowing up the base, things become an interplanetary adventure, as we take on the task of wiping out the Xeno-human threat. Starting with a visit to Fury 127, where things get a little heated. You get it, it's the planet from Alien 3's, and it's hot. We deal with the human and alien threat without much of a hitch, making this filler. The real goal is the alien hive, where we'll hopefully find the alien mommy queen. The hive is located within another military facility, which takes a lot more effort to infiltrate than the last. Dealing with both heavy infantry and Praetorian guards, they definitely do a number. But we press on until we reach the hive, coming face to face against the queen herself. And as you'll see, this doesn't go too well for her. To make things challenging, they take away our electric weapons, leaving us with the spear gun and wrist blades. But it's more than enough to make her regret becoming a mother. The alien queen fight was definitely a little too easy, but it's still a good time going head to head against the queen. That finishes up the Predator campaign, but like the Marine one, you'll unlock a bunch of bonus missions right after. They take you to most of the same places as the Marine and Alien missions, but through the Predator perspective. You even get a grappling hook, which honestly adds a really fun traversal mechanic that would have been a great part of the main campaign. And in retrospect, this is probably the easiest campaign, which honestly makes sense, seeing as we're the fucking Predator. But despite it being a total power fantasy, it definitely had its moments. I played in realistic difficulty, which is the equivalent of normal, and there were times where I was getting my ass utterly kicked, both by the aliens and the Marines. Though, I'll give most of my Predator deaths to the facehuggers. Sneaky bastards will end your 7-minute run in less than a second. The Alien. The Alien campaign starts you off inside the hive, where we're woken up to the sounds of our brethren being murdered. And with no free will of our own, we're tasked with keeping the humans out, where we quickly learn why they call us bugs. We get squashed out pretty easily, from pulse rifles to Molotovs. Everything does us in, especially the Molotovs. Fire in general is one of our biggest weaknesses, which is ironic considering how useless it was in the Marine campaign, but that's how it goes. As far as the combat goes, you're a glass cannon, able to deal high damage quickly, but go down just as fast. You don't regenerate health, but instead rely on cheeky headbites to restore it, which give off this euphoric screen effect that is honestly a trip. Weapon-wise, we have our claws and tail, which are more than enough to tear through just about any limb in a single hit. That combined with the sonic fast speed and low health make for a quick and intense combat cycle reminiscent of Doom, but it's hand to hand. But I digress because we're able to close off the hive, making us the Queen's favorite drone. So we're immediately loaded with more work as we're tasked with leaving the hive and infiltrating the human base up above. What ensues is utter carnage as we make our way through a Weyland-Yutani biolab. This starts a site-wide evacuation both for the humans and our eggs. So we seize the moment and board the freighter. Once on board, we're tasked with causing trouble. Now, the Faraco freighter is very much just a copy of the Nostromos from the original Alien, mother computer and all, which isn't a bad thing. It's pretty much a homage with how we slowly take over the ship by killing off the crew, making it feel like we're playing the movie. That said, the whole ship is very Mace-like, which along with our Spidey-like tendencies can make things a little disorienting. Also fire. But despite some trials and tribulations, we cause enough trouble to start yet another evac, which we also hijack. This takes us to Gateway Station, where they try to vent us out, which I'll admit did get me the first time. But from there, we start the process all over again, dismembering Marines and sabotaging the facility. This starts yet another evac. This time, it's from an Earthbound transport, so we definitely set our eyes on that. But it seems we're not the only ones causing trouble.
Cancel the Earthbound ship! I say again, Dock 4 is no longer secure! Are you guys hearing this? Are you hearing this? These guys are dead!
The Predator presence is the only thing standing between us and a free ride to Earth, so we get to work. The first Predator goes down without a fight, literally, because we pull out the old bob and weave, which is more than enough to take him down. The second guy is a little bit more troublesome, but once we close the distance, he falls for the same trick. And with nothing left to stop us, we board the Earthbound ship where we dream of things to come, ending our time as a drone. This was a lot more hopeful of an ending, at least compared to the Marines, but I guess it all depends on how you look at it. And like the other campaigns, you unlock a few missions which take you to the locations from the other paths, like the derelict ship from the Marine campaign and the caverns from the Predator. Now, despite this being the shortest campaign, it's also one of the hardest in the game, and if it wasn't for the allotted 3 saves per mission, I think this would have taken the longest to complete. That said, I'm playing the 2000s version, which retroactively added the mission save states. Yeah, the 1999 one didn't have that, so I can only imagine how annoying the Alien campaign could have been to complete. But since I didn't have to deal with that, it was overall a really good time. The head-biting and fast-paced combat made for an immersive experience that felt way different than the other two, making it a standout amongst the 3. That's it as far as the campaign goes, but there's a whole multiplayer mode which surprisingly is still active. Well, as active as the Dead Marine. But the few minutes I did manage to play were pretty damn fun. There's also a skirmish, which is pretty much just a horde mode, but it's pretty customizable, so I can see it being a good time. Overall, this game was phenomenal. Coming out just when FPSs were getting big, it really manages to capture the essence of each franchise, both with its mechanics and atmosphere, and all through a first-person perspective. And while the campaigns don't really intersect like they would in later ABP games, the bonus missions do revisit locations from each other's path. But in general, I appreciate how each one was its own mini story, with the Marine being my definite standout. The goofy transmissions juxtaposed by the grim ending made for a memorable story. That said, each campaign has its own special moments and mechanics, making them all feel special. It does suffer from some early 2000s clunk, mainly with the level design and lack of directionality, but it's so minimal that it doesn't really hinder the game. If anything, the overall difficulty made the whole thing pretty engaging. But what really sealed the deal for me, aside from the dismemberment, was the story. I know, just hear me out. I liked how each campaign got their own little transmissions. They all felt very 90s, and I was totally for it.
Everyone's dead up here. Everyone. I'm the last.
And despite their goofy performance, I was able to suspend my disbelief pretty easily. So, while its graphics and story may show their age, AVP 2000's core design is phenomenal. Not only is it a fun shooter, but it's a fun survival horror that definitely holds up after 25 years. Alright, that's gonna do it. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Your mom loves you, and so do I. But make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more garbage like this. Stay poochy, and I'll catch you on the next one. Oh, quick thing, I also did a retrospective on AVP Requiem for the PSP, and that's a whole thing, which you should definitely check out. Okay, bye.